Welcome back to Concept Soup, yes, with the PC in the background. Very nice indeed. So today, going to be a nice video. We're going to be looking at my first ITX build ever, actually. I've never done ITX, just because generally through running this the system integration business, they're usually just too expensive and people don't really tend to want them. They tend to just want regular mid-towers. But I thought, let's do an ITX build. I had an ITX motherboard lying around that I needed to use up. So we're going to go for the Phanteks Evolv ITX. Pretty nice looking case. So let's just get straight into the video. Okay. So let's go through the parts that we got today. We're going to be talking a bit more than we normally do about the parts. Just a bit of flavour on the channel. So first up, Ryzen 5 3600. So you say Ryzen 5 3600. Now this is the Ryzen 5 5600. The new kid on the block, bringing that great performance. A little bit expensive, but it is what it is. It's a pretty sweet ass CPU, and for a small form factor build, 65 watt TDP is very, very nice. So that's going to be a winner. Now next up, of course, is something to cool it. Now you could use the Wraith Stealth that comes in the box, but I've got a load of Wraith Prism coolers lying around, so we're going to be using that. Gives it a bit of RGB bling, and as we know, RGB sells PCs. So next up is going to be our motherboard. So I have this MSI B450i Gaming Plus AC. So obviously you got your Wi-Fi built in, as you do with pretty much every ITX motherboard. It is B450, but it's got a BIOS update available. So we just have to make sure that we do a BIOS update before we install it into the case, so that we can get it all hunky-dory, ready to go. But a pretty nice board. I'd be happy to put a Ryzen 7 in here as well. It's got decent enough voltage for that. Probably maybe a Ryzen 9 would be a bit much for this, but nice overall. The only reason I have this is because I actually use this in my test bench, but I had one that broke, so I bought one in the meantime, and then this RMA came back, so I have it ready for this build. That's pretty much the only reason I chose this one, but it is reasonably priced for what you get, so that's another bonus. For the RAM, we have two lots of 8. This is HyperX from Kingston, DDR4 3200 speed, CL16. You might be wondering, why did you buy it in 2 separate packs? Well, because it was cheaper. That's why. Okay, next up is the storage. So for the storage, it's the old reliable. You've been seeing this a lot because the price is great. 80 quid, 1 terabyte NVMe, Western Digital, 2400 read, probably about 1200 write. Pretty sweet and a good price, especially for gamers. This is a great NVMe. Right, next up is the graphics card, of course. So we have the Zotac Twin Edge RTX 3070. Sweet little GPU this. You've got that 2080 Ti like performance. And for the ITX, you don't really want to be putting in an RTX 3080 or 90. It's probably a little bit too powerful, unless you're like Optimum Tech and you really know what you're doing with ITX. Then I would probably stick to a 3070 for an ITX, just because you need something that's going to stay cool for optimum performance. So that's why we've got this. But it's a lovely, lovely card, this, and we'll be seeing it in action later on. Next up on the list is the power supply, of course. No one likes the power supply. It's the least sexy component, but it is the most important component. You need something that is reliable. Cooler Master MWE Bronze V2 does the job very nicely. I do like the V2 a bit better than the V1, mainly because it's got an additional CPU power cable on it, which does help with the modern motherboards. Pretty nice. This is apparently the new technology, DC to DC, so that's pretty sweet. 650 watts, absolutely plenty for this system, particularly with a 5600X CPU. You'd be laughing with a 650 watt. You'd be fine. And of course, it's got decent voltage rails on it. Let's see if I can find the diagram. There it is. So there's the table. Yeah, so you get 648 on the 12 volt out of 650s. That is a pretty sweet power supply. I do like that. You don't need to spend loads on a power supply. And of course, well, not pictured yet because we'll be seeing it in a minute. Of course, is the case itself, the Phanteks Evolv ITX. We've also got a couple of case fans that I had lying around. I think these are Corsair Air Guide or something. They came with the 4000D airflow. Just chuck these into the case for a bit of extra airflow. And I think we've got one last component, which is going to be the Speclux RGB strip. Pretty nice little LED strip, 13 quid on Amazon. Can't really go wrong. Just like any RGB strip, they don't tend to stick on very well despite being magnetic, so you might have to get the super glue out, but we shall see. so here's the case. It is pretty cool. It's like, it looks a bit like a Stormtrooper, that kind of like shiny sort of plasticky look. I think it looks really cool. Obviously you've got tempered glass on the side, and I can see there's a few bits inside that probably make this build quite interesting. So let's pop the side panel off and have a look inside. So taking a look inside the case, yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting. This is actually the first ITX build I've ever done, if you can believe it. I've done over 150 PCs. I've never actually managed doing an ITX yet. It's kind of crazy, but I think it's just the price of it puts people off, and people like mid towers. So yeah, it looks pretty compact, doesn't it? That looks pretty sweet. Now you've only got the 2 slots here, which means that the GPU is going to be drawing a lot of air from underneath here. Hopefully that's not going to impact the GPU thermals too much. I'll let you in a little secret. I was hoping to get the Cooler Master NR200P for this, because that comes with the riser cable and everything. It looks really cool, but sadly that's been out of stock for ages. It doesn't look like it's coming back. Interestingly, this it looks like I think it's a hard drive cage. You could put SSDs and stuff on it. I think I'll be taking this out because 1, it looks kind of bulky, and 2, I'm not sure I have quite enough room for the GPU with that inside. We've got some mounts at the front here, which looks like you can put a couple of 120mm fans in there, so we'll be doing that in a moment. Probably be the first thing that I do actually. And let's just see what it's like around the other side. So we've got room for a full ATX size power supply, which is awesome. Really, really cool. I like that because it's a very small case, but it doesn't mean you can't put a regular ATX power supply there. So I do appreciate that. And got a couple of hard drive bays in the bottom, 3.5-inch bays. So they've actually managed to stuff quite a lot of storage space into this case, which looks pretty cool. That looks like an SSD mount there, which is handy, and we've got a lot of cable grommets. And some decent cable organisation space, so you know it's looking pretty much like a regular micro ATX case, except it's an ITX. So without further ado, let's get on with the build. Actually, well, let's just show you the front I/O first. So we have that there, and that's the power button on top. I'm assuming this is just going to pop off, but we shall soon see. So yeah, there it is. Pretty sweet looking build actually. Yeah, so you notice that I did take that RGB strip out, and the thing with RGB strips is very hard to do them in a tasteful way, and it really depends on the case. So there are ways you can make it look nice. When it's just accenting something, that's great, but I think when you're trying to make it the main light source of the PC, it doesn't look very good. You're better off with fans, I think. It's just when you can recess it into the corners of the case so that you don't actually see the LEDs themselves, then it actually can look quite tasteful. But I felt that actually it probably looks a bit better without the strip in, so I took it out. But actually I'd be interested to know in the comments what you guys thought. Do you think it looked better with the LED strip around the corners, or do you think it looked better without it? Of course, I think it looks better without it, but that's just my personal preference. Yeah, nice case to this Phanteks ITX. It's basically the same as building in a regular mid-tower, except it's a lot smaller. What can I say? Well put together, plenty of storage space. You can put an ATX power supply in it, which helps save money. The only thing about it is it didn't look very even, the case, so it had the topology of the case was quite varied, so you had that sort of cover that you could put an SSD or a hard drive on top of, which looked a little bit out of place in my opinion. You can actually put longer graphics cards in there, as long as they're 2-slot graphics cards, because it would just go underneath that metal plate. But I wasn't really sure of the implementation of that, whether it looked any good. But on the whole, I think the case does look very nice. It's just not my kind of style. It's kind of like that shiny, plasticky, looks like a stormtrooper almost, that sort of shiny plastic look, which is great for some people, but it just wasn't for me, sadly. But it was nice to do an ITX build. Don't do them very often. Maybe next time I'll do a proper ITX build in something a bit smaller. But if you like the video, please like, comment, share, subscribe, and yeah, in the comments let me know if you thought it looked better without the strip or with the strip, and let me know if you had any tips about using this case or anything else you want to see from me in future. Thanks for watching, see you later.